I like to think of the museum as this gathering place for all of our community partners, whether they're a school district or a big university. They can't see a rocket engine up close. We take the cover off of this one rocket engine that we have, and they can touch it. They can feel it, and it's just, you can't get that experience anywhere. We're one of the few museums that offer that type of thing.
Hi, I'm Jeff Holden. Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. Our purpose and passion is to highlight a nonprofit organization in each weekly episode, giving that organization an opportunity to tell their story in their words to better inform and educate the respective communities they serve, as well as provide one more tool for them to share their message to constituents and donors. Our goal is to help build stronger communities through shared voices and to both encourage and support the growth of local nonprofit organizations through podcasting. Thanks to our founding partners for their foresight in helping us transform the way conversations start. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations. Runyon Saltzman Incorporated, RSE, marketing, advertising, and public relations creating integrated communications committed to improving lives. And Western Health Advantage, a full-service healthcare plan for individuals, employer groups, and families. Sacramento is rich in aerospace technology and development. That history transcends generations as the region's been home to multiple air bases: Mather, McClellan, Beale, and Travis. Our national space program for many years was powered by rocket engines engineered, built, and tested by Aerojet. The U-2 spy planes and our surveillance craft are based near Marysville at Beale Air Force Base. All this doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of the related industry that serve all these programs. With such depth and history, it's only fitting we should have a museum to both memorialize and educate our youth on the wonder of flight and technology. The California Aerospace Museum does that and so much more. STEM programs stimulate creativity and curiosity. Flight simulators and private pilot training literally engage those interested at all levels. If you've never stood under a Titan IV rocket engine or climbed into the belly of a massive transporter, you've simply got to experience it to believe it. Tom Jones is president and CEO of the California Aerospace Museum. He's a Navy veteran, former high school teacher, and a very experienced pilot. He's going to share with us the incredible value the museum brings to our community in so many ways well beyond the exhibits we see on the property. And may I add, they are incredible. Let's get started. Tom Jones, welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff. It's an honor to be here.
Well, it's exciting because we're going to be able to take off and learn some things with, I think, a lot of elements that people don't realize about the Aerospace Museum.
The museum's great at helping people take off.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get started down the runway. I can't help it. There's going to be a few of these throughout.
Yeah, it's all good.
Some people may question why an aerospace museum in Sacramento. And really the question should be, why not? And
Sure.
If you would explain, because we have such a rich history in aviation and flight and aerospace.
Yeah, for people that are new to Sacramento, they may not realize it, but this region, Sacramento specifically, has a very rich aviation and aerospace history. And it goes back over 100 years. Actually, Mather, if it had still been open, it was open for 100 years, basically. And then we had 4 major military bases around here, plus B.T. Collins, plus Sacramento, the Reserve Center. There's been a tremendous amount of military and aviation-specific history around the area. In fact, McClellan specifically was a hub for military flight operations all the way prior to World War II. It was a Sacramento Air Logistics Center initially, starting in 1935. McClellan was a key part of the Doolittle Raid. If you go back, and for those people that understand history and how important the Doolittle Raid was to U.S. success in World War II, mm-hmm. Jimmy Doolittle and that crew stopped at McClellan on their way to Alameda. And if you ever come visit the museum, I'll show you some very interesting things that we've got there.
I'll take that personal tour. I've been several times. My father was an aficionado on all things World War II. And he didn't actually participate. He was in the Korean War, but he just was fascinated by every part of it. And in specific, the flight and aviation and just the technology that was so quickly evolving as that war went on.
Exactly. You think about, we went from basically non-powered flight with gliders and kites, non-powered flight to powered flight in 1903 with the Wright brothers, to flying to the moon in less than half a century. I mean, we're doing things now, hypersonics, that are just unbelievable, right? We never thought that we would get to that place. But, Sacramento's had this incredibly rich history of air crew and maintenance, crew training for, almost 90 years. And it goes way back. Also in that, we've got Aerojet. Aerojet was a huge part of Sacramento economy, huge part of the Sacramento history. And we've got several Aerojet items that were created and flown at Aerojet, or used with Aerojet, hanging inside the museum. Engines that powered the Mercury, Gemini, Saturn rockets, the space shuttle. These are really important pieces of American history and specific to Sacramento history as well.
I remember when we first moved here in '85, Aerojet was still open. And we lived in Fair Oaks, and they would send warnings notices to you that you're going to hear something on such and such date at such and such time. And they were firing rockets.
Right.
Literally on the ground.
Yeah.
And that far away from Fair Oaks to where they were in Folsom, maybe 15, 18, 20 miles, the rumble and the sound
you
was
still heard it,
amazing.
Right? Yeah.
Just amazing.
Yeah, it is incredible. And so this region fostered incredible innovation in aviation and aerospace and all kinds of cutting-edge technology, and we continue to do that today. And so I like to think of the museum as this magical place where you can bring kids from ages 2 to 102 that want to be students and study aerospace history, all of the incredible advances in aerospace technology, for the past 100 years or more.
What's amazing is museums are more often than not static. You go and you come and you see something, and it's typically historical. That's not the case at the Aerospace Museum. You have all kinds of interactive opportunities, right?
Oh, yeah. We're a very much hands-on, STEM-focused, STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math.
Thank you.
STEM-focused activities and programs, education programs that are very much focused on students. And also the fifth grade science standard. That's our key demographic, so to speak. Our key market is we try and encourage all the school districts in the area. Some school districts go all the way to San Francisco and spend thousands of dollars on buses when some people don't even know that we have a huge, beautiful aerospace museum right here in Sacramento that you can get to a lot easier than driving all the way to the city.
Certainly for their benefit, too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and we built our education program based on next generation science standards. We've got handouts for teachers and programs that are built to support the teacher and the students as they learn about aerospace and flight.
Do those programs enter into the classroom as well? Do they transcend the museum, or do they spend more time in the museum as a class?
They spend more time in the museum as a class.
Okay.
Yeah, generally. But, students have to learn about forces, for example, and that starts early on in elementary school. But all of that knowledge can transition to the 4 forces of flight and a vast array of other things that we learn about in aerospace.
Oh, boy, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
And you also have the simulators on campus, right?
We do. Yeah, we've got 8 simulators. 7 of them, we have 1 helicopter simulator and 6 aircraft simulators, and then we've got 1 simulator that was just donated by an FAA grant last year that is actually used for pilot training, more specifically for instrument training for pilots, because it is rated to be able to log flight time in that simulator, and it's just a fabulous piece of equipment.
I'm certainly aware of simulators. I didn't realize they would be certified as if in flight.
Yes. And that's a big deal.
I can imagine, yeah.
This particular simulator that I'm talking about it's called an AATD, Advanced Aviation Training Device.
Okay.
There are also BATDs, Basic Aviation Training Devices. But this is an advanced aviation training device. It's got a full glass cockpit. It's a Diamond DA-40 aircraft, single-engine aircraft. But I'm a flight instructor and
I was going to ask you. So, what is it from your perspective, sitting in this cockpit of?
But I've got almost over 4,000 hours of flight time, and all kinds of different airplanes, from helicopters to big Navy C-130s and many other things. But what's fascinating about that simulator to me is when I take my students in there, I mean, by the time we're done, after about an hour session, I can give them emergencies, all types of different failures that I can't do in the aircraft, right? But it makes them think. It makes them consider what the issues and the possibilities are if they have this problem for real in an aircraft. And we can't possibly do that in a real, in the clouds, like a day like today.
Consequence might be a little bit more severe than sitting on the ground. It wouldn't be fun
to do that for anyone. But it makes it really very real. And, so quite often they come out of there sweating, they get a real workout.
Yeah.
And it's good for them to see that in a simulated environment. It really makes it very real.
Tell me a little bit about the collaboration that you have with the community, because you are really deep. And again, I think people see the surface of what is a museum, but they don't realize all the tentacles and the involvement and the organizations and the people and the students that come through. What does that look like?
Yeah, this year we have already we've set a new record for the museum of 45,000 students.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, and so when I first got there a little over 7 years ago, we had about 10,000 students a year coming through the museum, and now we're up to 45,000 students, and we crossed 100,000 visitors as of the end of November. So, and that's up from about 30,000 way back when. So that involvement with the community comes in. There's never just one thing. There's no silver bullet with how the museum works or operates or what makes it tick.
Yes.
There's always a zillion different things that we're juggling to make it all come together. But we have community partnerships with the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Police Activities League, the Sheriff's Youth Programs, Sacramento County Sheriff's Youth Programs. We're open to partnerships. In my best estimate, we've got well over 300 different partnerships with other organizations around the area. But we're open to partnerships all the time with organizations from other counties, local counties, or we've got educational partnerships with all the local community colleges whose students have done projects and exhibits for the museum. Sac State internships and projects that have been done by Sac State students at the museum. UC Davis, we've got a very close and long-term partnership with UC Davis, Aerospace Engineering, Mechanical Engineering.
Yes.
And so, and all of those were built, 5 or 6 years ago, and they've just been fabulous for all the students involved. In fact, this UC Davis program that got built probably 5 to 6 years ago, those graduate students, so they're working on master's degrees and PhDs in aerospace engineering and or mechanical engineering, and they mentor the 7th grade students down the street from the museum in a program called SOAR, where it's an academic enrichment program. And it's just incredible. And so the graduate students joke that they're learning more about all this than the younger kids are.
Well, sure. When somebody puts you on the spot with questions, you have to think on your feet and learn.
That's right.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah. So it's exciting. We have dozens and dozens of partnerships, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, across the board. There's a lot going on at the museum.
Well, what I especially like about that, when you bring youth into the situation that maybe they've never been aware of, maybe they've never even seen a plane up close, haven't ever been on a tarmac, or in your case, they get an opportunity to visit the interior, of some of these planes and sit literally, in a cockpit.
And so when school tours come, we take them inside of a couple of aircraft that we own that belong to the Aerospace Museum. And it's just a fabulous experience for these kids because, I think like we were talking about earlier, these these are not your normal passenger aircraft on Delta Airlines.
Right.
It was pretty sparse inside the aircraft and cold for a lot of the passengers way back when that were flying on some of these aircraft.
Well, and they get a whole new appreciation for it. And on the flip side, because you have the contemporary element, as we know, our kids are more and more video game oriented.
Exactly.
So, the simulators and things of that nature really give them the ability to see that maybe there's an opportunity for them. There's a job they didn't expect or see, or they can at least dream into a space that maybe was never in their purview.
Right. And that's where, and I spent 25 years in the Navy, and when I retired, I went to be a teacher at a local high school, Luther Burbank High School in South Sac. And we had incredible students in that program. And what I saw with those teenagers was they needed to be involved in a hands-on education environment. And the more hands-on we could make it, the more engaging that we could make all that program, the more involved and inspired they were. Mm-hmm. And so we brought a lot of that to the museum and all the activities and all the different things that we do. And, we've really reached out and done tremendous amounts of outreach with all the school districts in the area, with the superintendents of almost all the school districts. We're still working on a handful of other ones, but we've got very close partnerships with San Juan Unified School District, Twin Rivers, Gateway Community Charters, and several other school districts, where those kids, they come to our summer camps, as educational enrichment programs, they come on school field trips, they get involved. And some of those students come, we've got probably 100 students that are student volunteers. Mm-hmm. So from age 13 up, students can volunteer at the museum and be a docent. So some of them get trained by our docents who were retired airline pilots, retired military pilots, and
what
on
great
and on
exposure
and on.
for
It's
them.
Incredible. And so a lot of the students like to volunteer in the flight zone in those simulators because, I always joke that they speak kid better than I do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely right.
So they can sit down with a 10-year-old and kind of walk them through the process. How do you fly an airplane? What makes an airplane fly? And then show them on the simulator. And by the time they're done, you got a 10-year-old flying a jet, and it's pretty cool.
And can you imagine going home and sharing that experience to your parents?
Oh, yeah.
I guess get excited. It's exciting for me. I would love to sit in one of those simulators and play it. I've done the F1 simulators, and they're a blast. I can only imagine what the flight ones must be like.
They're very realistic. I mean, people, sometimes the kids will crash the plane or whatever, and they're, it's just very
bounces
real.
You around a little bit.
Well, they feel like that you see them flinching, because it's real.
Yeah,
it feels real.
Yeah.
So I like to think of the museum as this gathering place. It's a gathering place for all of our community partners, whether they're a school district or a big university. UC Davis brings their aerospace engineering students to the museum. They can't see a rocket engine up close anywhere else.
Right.
Not easily, but they've got it there at the museum. Same thing, Sac State's engineering students come to us. And so we have lots of those types of partnerships. The Kiwanis Club of Carmichael, their volunteers, their people, and those Kiwanians come volunteer for museum events. And it's just a fascinating, wonderful partnership between us and them and, all these different groups.
And that's what makes the museum so rich and such a value to the community is the integrations that you've got and the exposure that you give to so many who would otherwise never see. Back to the technology of a dated ancient rocket engine where, these UC Davis students are coming and saying, I get it. How on earth back then did they ever do that?
With a slide rule.
Yes.
Right? They built all this stuff
and
with a slide rule, and it made it to the moon and back.
Right?
Right? And now we have, we struggle sometimes with some of the basics.
Right.
But it helps to see it hands-on. And, I've stood there in those class settings with students, and I hear them go, oh, I get it. The rocket that's 2,000 degrees, the rocket engine, is being cooled by the fuel that's coming right down the side of this rocket engine. And you can see it. it's right there. We take the cover off of this one rocket engine that we have, and they can touch it. They can feel it, and it's just you can't get that experience anywhere else.
No.
In fact, we're one of the few museums that offer that type of thing to anyone. That very tactile, hands-on learning.
Yes.
Right.
How do you keep the exhibits fresh?
That's a constant challenge, but we're very good at it. We have a highly creative team of staff, volunteers, and board members that we, people think up things and go, what if we did this? And sometimes those ideas stick and they generate a tremendous amount of energy, and we start moving down the path. Our longest exhibit development, we build most of our own exhibits, and we have a very, very small team. So it's
how many people do you employ?
We have 8 employees, 8 full-time employees, and 6 part-time employees. We have about 350 volunteers, and then we've got 18 board trustees. And so, it's corralling and directing and motivating this crew to bring all these things together, not just on the exhibit front, but then on the funding side of the museum that keeps it going, that keeps you can't a museum that size. I would love to be able to operate it with just volunteers, but that's not possible, right? You have to have full-time staff. Exactly. We've got a 7-acre property, and it's keeping all of the grass cut and all the maintenance things that happen to the building, to the property, to the aircraft and the air park. It's a full-time job.
And so people know it's at McClellan.
Yes.
It's at the former McClellan Air Base.
Right.
A huge complex of a variety of different businesses.
4,500 acres.
Okay.
At McClellan Park. And
you have 7 of them.
And we have 7, yes.
So you are at what was an airfield, so you have the ability to display both in and outside.
Correct. Yes. So we've got a 40,000 square foot building, and inside of that building, we display aircraft and rocket engines, and then outside it, we have an air park, about a 4-acre air park in the back, and it's got a little over 40 airplanes in the air park, and so you can walk around and walk up and touch them. Walk up and, hey, that's what a prop feels like. This big propeller that's like the size of your body, it's like, wow, this is cool, to see this. Walk inside of airplanes. We have 2 days a year that are open cockpit days. And so we've coordinated with all of our partners that we borrow, the Air Force, the Navy, that we borrow aircraft from to be able to let people look inside, or in some cases go inside of some of the aircraft. And we own several aircraft as well. So
does any of this is just a curiosity aside, not one of our questions, but do any of the planes that the Aerospace Museum owns still fly?
We just got a donation of a 1942 Ryan PT-22, and it does fly.
Oh,
and it
very
is,
cool.
Yeah, we've got other planes that we could get to fly, but funding is always such a big issue for us. It's just not really cost efficient for us to be flying the airplanes. But if we had a major donor or unlimited funding, I would love to see a lot more flying airplanes with our museum.
Let's fly into the recognition of the people who make this program possible. I was in the media business for over 35 years and had the great privilege of working with Runyon Saltzman, RSE, Marketing, Advertising, and Public Relations. We collaborated on many different campaigns, but their commitment to the nonprofit sector hasn't changed since their founder, Gene Runyon, started the agency. Over many years and many campaigns, Runyon Saltzman has been committed to improving lives by tackling California's most challenging issues. Guided by research-informed strategies and insightful, creative solutions, RSE develops innovative communications campaigns that raise awareness, educate, and reduce stigma in diverse communities throughout our state and beyond. To learn more about RSE, visit rs-e.com.
Hello, this is Scott Thomas with Cap Trust in our Sacramento office. I specialize in working with local nonprofits and associations. Annually, we survey private and public nonprofit organizations across the country to better understand challenges they see in today's environment. In our more recent survey, we heard concerns about proper board governance, mission-aligned investment, and how to implement alternative investments. If you would like a copy of the survey or to discuss your organization, look me up, Scott Thomas at captrust.com.
I'm thrilled to have Western Health Advantage partnering with us as they do so much to support so many nonprofit agencies in our community. As a truly local health plan, you'll find individual and family options, employer options, plans for CalPERS and Medicare Advantage. From medical services to pharmacy, health and wellness support, as well as behavioral health care, Western Health Advantage has a plan that fits what you need. As an employer, for profit or nonprofit business, individual or family, you can find more at westernhealth.com. You are right in the space we're going. It's right where we're going. Tell us a little bit about your budget. How are you funded?
Well, our budget is about $1.7 million per year, and all that funding comes from a patchwork of visitor revenue, small community grants, and private individual donations. But kind of like one of our board trustees said to me a long time ago, we start at zero on January 1st. This is what makes me nervous about this time of the year because I'm back to zero again, right?
Yes.
But we start at zero every January 1st, and we got to climb essentially about a $2 million mountain.
Uh-huh.
The more we can get over that 1.7, we can add any extra to, any type of an endowment that we would build up. Mm-hmm. We currently do not have an endowment. So, this is your Aerospace Museum, right?
Yes.
This is not funded by the military. It's less than 1% of our budget comes from any government entity. So it's very much it belongs to the Sacramento community, even though it's a private museum. It does, in my opinion, it belongs to this community. And so we need your help. We need, if you like our stuff on Facebook and Instagram, please forward it to the world. Make sure everybody knows that the Aerospace Museum of California is at McClellan. It's fun. It's engaging. And
it's necessary.
Yeah, and it'll help if you have any interest in aerospace or aviation. It'll help you understand it better.
Careers certainly can be, if they haven't already been, spawned.
Oh yeah,
by the experience of attending the museum.
Exactly. And so I use this kind of saying every once in a while. Where imagine, do you think it's fair for us to say that 1 out of 1,000 students are inspired at the Aerospace Museum of California? Is that a fair metric
Absolutely.
to use?
Yep.
I think it's much higher than that. In fact, I know it is. But if that's the case, if we take 1 student out of 1,000, that means that 45 students a year are having their life trajectory changed by the Aerospace Museum of California. Okay, and so we sit right in the kind of neighborhood where this museum needs to be. Right, we are in North Highlands, community that's been generally underserved, especially after the McClellan base closed. So these are students that need us, and we need to be there for them, and we need to inspire them to do something better and something bigger with their life. So if, for example, those 1 out of 1,000 students was a student that was headed towards being a burden to society and possibly ending up in jail and all of the personal life ramifications that would have for that person, plus any children that they have and the generational impact of that.
Yep.
So what if you took that 1 student and changed the trajectory of their life from being a burden to society to being a value-added member of society where they're paying taxes, where they've got a good job, where they've got a great, fun, interesting aerospace job? The delta between those two things is well over $200,000 a year.
Easily.
Year after year, across an entire life.
Right.
So $1 invested in the Aerospace Museum of California over 20 years, our best calculation is that it comes back as $2,000 back to our community.
Not to mention the generational change you make in that family.
Right.
Because that student at 5th, 6th, 7th grade happened to see something and pursue it.
So multiply that times hundreds of students a year.
Yep.
Your museum brings great value back to your community, right? So help us, help fund us, help donate to us, help be the future, because we're just getting started with all the exciting things that we could possibly do.
And STEM, science, technology,
engineering
and math are so significant in the future. Everything we look at, it's where it's going.
Exactly.
It's gone. It's there.
And it doesn't matter if you're an artist, you still need to understand aspects, elements of STEM.
And much more so today with AI.
Right.
It does stuff, but you have to understand the equation of how it's going to benefit you.
Or is it accurate?
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
There's a lot of fake things that come out of AI that are close, but they're not quite right.
In art, it's not going to be catastrophic. In a plane, it's not a good thing.
Or in an engineering environment.
That's right.
It needs to be accurate.
That's right.
Right?
So you started a little bit down the path, but I want to give you the opportunity to do this in the clouds, let's say. What if budget wasn't an option? What would it look like? What would the museum look like?
I think sometimes I sit back and dream about that. I think about that, and I said, if we didn't have to worry about money, how would this museum look, act, and feel, right? This is a Smithsonian affiliate. It's one of 2 Smithsonian affiliates in Sacramento. Okay, that means that this is like a miniature version of the National Air and Space Museum in your neighborhood, right? And to me, if we didn't have to worry about money, let's make the museum free. We had a free museum day the last time that we did it, and it was totally free for people to come in. 8,500 people came in one day.
In one day?
In one day. If it was free every day,
can you imagine?
Think about the people that we would inspire in this community. Think about the change, the impact that museum, our museum, your museum would have on your community.
Wow.
Right? And so that's just one aspect. But imagine we just finished the hosting of a national traveling exhibit. That exhibit cost us $250,000.
How long was it there?
It was there for a little over 6 months.
Okay.
But that was one of the generators of so much visitorship this year. It was such an intense and educational exhibit and so much fun for the kids to participate in that we just all practically we added several thousand people to the roll call this year in numbers.
Just as a result of that. So that would have been a good return on its investment.
Yes. It paid for itself. It made some money.
What was the exhibit?
It was called Math Alive. And so imagine an arcade that was based on math.
Okay.
Okay. You go in and you're playing all these games, you're doing all this fun stuff, but it was all math based, and you had to think through how are you going to do it better, faster, And
all of a sudden math isn't so bad.
And math is fun then, right? It answers every middle school boy's question of why do I need to study math?
Right. Study, period.
Because it's involved in everything you do in life.
That's right. That's right.
Right. So
now, congratulations on that.
Yeah. But if money wasn't an issue, or if there's some donor out there that's listening to this, you think about that. That money, that $250,000 had to be paid to the exhibit company up front in advance out of the museum's funding, right? Our very limited revenues that we have.
Yeah.
And so we took a chance. We could have lost our tail on it. We didn't, but it's one of those things that if money was not an issue, we'd have a traveling exhibit every year. The last traveling exhibit we had before this one was 5 years ago.
Okay.
It costs a lot of money. We would love to have one. We had the opportunity to bring another one in right on the heels of this last one that left. I mean, literally 2 weeks later. We just didn't have the funding to be able to comfortably do that.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that.
But it's been tough because we went out looking for donors. We just couldn't find enough funding to support it. So
sure. Well, you only had a little window too, so it makes it tough.
It was short notice on their part to tell us about it, and we're still working on it. But if we have donors out there that would like to see another traveling exhibit at the museum, we're all ears. We'd love to talk to you.
How about Tom, if you look at the greatest need, let's come back to the tarmac now. We're on the ground and we're back at the museum. What is the greatest need you've got?
Money. With more money, we could serve more students and more families. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. We have an incredible team, our museum staff, the volunteers, the board of trustees. We are incredible as a team of people that are leading and guiding the museum to bigger and better things all the time. Mm-hmm. But we are so, we need more money to be able to do that.
Yeah, yours is more a direct correlation of revenue to performance.
Right.
And it's really what it is, because you've got all the assets per se, short of these traveling shows, to really create an incredible environment. And a lot of the environment isn't just the mechanical, physical piece of it. It's the educational process, and it's the courses or the curriculum, so to speak, that happens along with the demonstration of the pieces.
Yeah. And so, we just discovered this past year or so, every student that we have come through the museum on a tour or paid admission doesn't come close to covering the cost, but that's what the market will bear, right? The schools, the school districts, they have to pay for busing, for transportation, there's a lot of logistics involved with getting students on a tour to the museum. And so when you add that cost to the museum's cost, the cost gets pretty high for student tours. So unlimited funding would be every student in Sacramento County would come to the museum for free on their field trip, right? There's a lot of different things that we could do to really inspire kids and make the museum even better.
Well, and I'm sure teachers appreciate that too, because then it brings back the awareness to the classroom, wherever campus happens to be, of remember this at the museum. Here's why we do this.
Right.
And they can engage so differently in all the fields, wherever those field trips take place. But this one is, every student sees a rocket ship on television when it goes up, and it's such a big experience. Or if they get the opportunity to fly, what a big experience that is.
Well, it's one of the best parts of my day when we have student tours come in, and these are kids, everything from basically about second grade up to high school students, or sometimes even college students come in as large groups. But when they walk in the door and they see huge aircraft hanging from the ceiling, space rockets, and all these different things that we have on display, and you just see their jaw drop open, and they're like, wow. It's overwhelming. And I love that part, and to see the excitement and the inspiration in their eyes when they walk in and see what the Aerospace Museum has to show them, teach them, inspire them with. It's very cool.
And I think the first time I saw that, and again, the same experience, we had relatives. I lived in Chicago, relatives in St. Louis. We flew to the airport. The Spirit of St. Louis.
That's right.
There's a plane hanging from the ceiling. And the first thing you're like, how does that happen? How can they put a plane up there? It's got to be heavy. It's really.
Yeah.
But it was one of those moments that I will never forget.
Yeah.
Of wow. And then of course now over the years you see other airports and those planes hanging all over the place.
Right.
But it is such a striking and demonstration of something big.
Yeah.
And not to mention, we have the air show here as well, who I know you partner very closely with.
Yes.
Just the sight and feel of all of that, and being able to now come see it on a permanent display at the museum.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
Yeah, Darcy runs the California Capital Air Show, and Darcy and Angela, and they just do a fabulous job.
Yeah.
And we used to tease each other. We have fireworks at our big gala event, but if you haven't seen the fireworks at Capital Air Show, they actually are even better than our fireworks, which is hard to believe.
I was going to say,
true.
I've been to both.
Yeah.
And experienced them both. I love fireworks, so
yeah,
they're both great.
Yeah.
In terms of the best way to find out more about the museum, more about the things, and before we go there, let me ask you something, because I think I saw we were talking about not only does the museum offer all these educational elements, but you also have a scholarship, correct?
We do. This past year in 2024, we had 2 private pilot license scholarships that we awarded. We ended up having 68 applicants, and
Wow.
2 young ladies actually were awarded those scholarships. They were just absolutely fantastic.
Darcy's thrilled about that.
Young students, yeah, that's right. Girls in STEM.
That's right.
We have tons of programs that are focused on helping girls in STEM education and STEM and aviation. In fact, we had get off topic here for just a sec.
It's okay.
But it's an incredible program that we have with San Juan Unified School District, Twin Rivers Unified School District, and other districts around the area. In September, this program started off, it's called We Can Do It Together, and it's a girls in STEM education experience. And so it started off small. We had about 200 or 300 young ladies that came, but there were dozens of professional women, engineers, doctors, dentists, aviation people, pilots and everything. But these young girls could see themselves in these professional women and say, oh, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
I can see myself being that. So this past year, the program over 4 years has grown so much, so quickly, we had to break it into 2 days. And we had over 1,500 young middle school and high school girls and 70 professional women that were there for these 2-day event for this amazing
That's
thing.
incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. And so at one point I'm standing by the stage and we're going through introductions, and there's a lady that's a pediatric neurosurgeon, and she's an African-American lady. And that particular day, we had a lot of students sitting up in the audience, and we probably had 400 students in the audience, but a large group of African-American young girls were sitting up by the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And when she said that, you could see every single mouth in the audience just drop open. And one of the girls standing about 10 feet away from me said, I didn't know I could do that. And it was just
fabulous?
It was perfect.
Yes.
Right? And so you hear this and you see this inspiration that's going on. And so that's what the museum's there
Right.
for. It's your museum to help inspire you and your own family to go out and live a better life, attach yourself to all this exciting stuff that's going on with technology in our world.
Yeah.
There's amazing jobs out there. And so we like to think of ourselves as a real economic engine of the Sacramento community, because every dollar that gets invested in the museum comes
right
back to $2,000 to you
Right.
in the future.
On those scholarships, they're $12,500 ish.
Yes.
Okay, and that's probably enough to get you through flight school.
It should be enough to get most students through a private pilot license,
Okay.
a certification, FAA certification for a
And-
private pilot's license. We had one of the young ladies this year, in 2024, that was so efficient at using her money. She found somebody that had a really inexpensive airplane to fly, and her instructor worked with her. By the time she was done with her private pilot's license, she still had, I think it was about $7,000 left of her 12-5 scholarship.
Good negotiator. We're going to get her in some other
it was
roles
very
too.
good on her part. But she asked, "Can I use this for my instrument rating, my pilot's instrument rating?" And we went back to the donor and said, "Absolutely, you can do that." So her goal is to be a Cal Fire pilot, tanker pilot.
Isn't that
And
great?
so,
Right in our
she
backyard.
is on her way. Right? She's 18 years old and she's just doing great stuff.
Yeah.
She made it through that program. We gave both of them a year to get through, and they're going to be done in 6 or 7 months.
Fantastic.
It's incredible.
That's the stuff where you can literally see the application.
Yeah.
And she's coming back to be Cal Fire.
Right.
And we know that's right out of McClellan.
High-paying jobs.
And we see those orange planes. All
all the
summer
time.
long. You're going to be busy.
That's right.
That's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Tom, what's the best way to find out more about the museum, the exhibits, the opportunities, classes, and scheduling and everything?
The best way is to go right to the museum's website. It's aerospaceca.org. Aerospaceca like California.org.
And we will put that in the show notes as well.
Yes. And we have a weekly newsletter. So if you go to the museum's website, a little pop-up banner will come up and it says, join the museum's newsletter. And that's fabulous because it gives you the opportunity to get a weekly update on what's going on at the museum. We have about 100 events a year and all kinds of ways for families to, get a family membership and keep coming back and inspiring the kids over and over and over again.
Okay, I know somebody is listening that's going to say, well, what kind of planes do you have there? Just because we didn't want to, that would be rough for anybody that doesn't really know, but what might be some of the neatest planes that are?
Yeah, we've got an A-10 Warthog, an F-14, like from the movie Top Gun.
Okay.
We've got, like I said, we've got about over 40 aircraft that are on display inside and outside the museum. We have an A-4 Skyhawk, which is a Blue Angels jet. It's inside the exhibit hall. And that was a 3-year exhibit process for us because we restored that jet. It was looking very, very rough, and it got done during COVID.
Okay.
We brought it back to life. It's a gorgeous, beautiful, display.
Example of that plane.
That plane and that timeline of the Blue Angels.
Okay.
The 1980s
Good.
Blue Angels jet.
Well, that's satisfying a little bit of the people who are listening. Go, well, wow, tell me something about a plane, because most of us, we wouldn't know if you're explaining what it is.
Yeah, if you know aircraft, we've got an F-86 Sabre, just a whole bunch of different aircraft. We've got one aircraft. It's a C-47. A C-53.
Those are big
transport
planes.
plane. Yeah, and that aircraft actually towed gliders into Normandy. That particular aircraft at the museum towed gliders into Normandy the night before the D-Day invasion. So you imagine that. You're in a glider, right, being towed across the English Channel at night, at midnight. The mess is about to hit the fan the next morning, right? And you get to fly behind the German lines and then come back and attack them from the rear, right? And
quietly.
So to help quietly. So these are spec op guys that are doing that work, and they're going to land in the dark in a glider in a field.
Amazing.
Unprepared.
Amazing.
Right? Unprepared field.
It's
incredible.
And it returned. It came back.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So, there are lots of stories. Every aircraft that we have just has a lot of fun and interesting stories. It's a great place. It's a magical place.
Yeah, it is. And I can attest, having been there, if you haven't been to the museum, it really is worth, even if you're not into airplanes or flight, it's just the understanding and the visibility of it all that changes your perspective on what it's taking and what it took, especially back then,
right,
to put these things together.
Slide rules.
Yes. And very smart people.
Yes, very smart people
that we trusted a lot.
Talk about hands-on engineering.
That's right? I just love seeing the heritage, the history, the evolution of what you present at the museum.
Thank you.
What an incredible asset we have when we look at what it does for our students and the introduction to things way beyond flight and planes and the experiences that they get that change their lives.
Yeah.
And therein lies the greater value. So thank you for what you and your team are doing, the mighty team of 8, which is incredible, and those volunteers who do so much to keep everything in a presentable fashion over the course of a year.
They are amazing. Our volunteers are and our board is just amazing. So,
well, we appreciate it, Tom, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invitation to be here.
Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If what you heard moved you, please reach out to that organization and do what you can to help. If you like and appreciate what we're doing to support local nonprofits, please give us a positive review, subscribe, and share. If you're a nonprofit with an interest in participating in an episode, you can reach me at jeff@hearmenowstudio.com. If you have a need for the services or products our sponsors offer, please reach out to them. Cap Trust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations. Runyon Saltzman Incorporated, RSE, marketing, advertising, and public relations, creating integrated communications committed to improving lives. And Western Health Advantage, a full-service healthcare plan for individuals, employer groups, and families. The Nonprofit Podcast Network is a production of, is recorded at, and edited by Hear Me Now Studio.